Hello and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Johan and I'm a Dutchie, and I'm here to learn more about life and living in Australia by watching YouTube videos about life and living in Australia, because it's way down there, down under, and I'm afraid of flying. So for now, this is the best way, I will not say the only way, but the best way to learn more about life and living in Australia. And for Salvo, because it's Friday, we're doing a request video, and this request video is from Heather. Yes, from Heather. And Heather suggested to me that I should take a look at the video of WW2 in Australia, specifically the bombing of Darwin. And I think, wow, good idea. I was interested in the WW2. Of course, it's in Europe. We had a lot of historical discussion and videos and replays, etc. And so I was always interested with what is the strategy behind Hitler's plans and how did the Allies respond, etc. Cycled along around here in the Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany to watch and look at all of this, also from World War II. And I was thinking, yeah, I have a video collection. No, it's a Blu-ray collection from the Pacific. Oh, this side, no, that side. Out of the, yeah, there it is. From the Pacific, 10 hours about the war in Pacific. So I've seen that one. So I'm curious about the bombing of Darwin. How that went on. It's, I believe, the Pearl Harbor of Australia. So let's dive into the video while I put up my headset.
On the morning of the 19th of February 1942, fighters, bombers, and aircraft carriers from the Japanese Navy were launched for the air raids on Darwin, the largest single attack ever mounted by a foreign power on Australia. Also known as the Australian Pearl Harbor, this is the bombing of Darwin.
In 1942. I hope it's not too copyrighted, otherwise I will never put it up.
Darwin is the capital city of the Northern Territory of Australia, situated on the Timor Sea. It was a small town with limited civil and military infrastructure, with a population of 5,800 people. Due to its strategic position in Northern Australia, the Royal Australian Navy, RAN, and Royal Australian Air Force, RAAF, had constructed bases near the town in the 1930s and the early years of World War II. As early as August 1941, Darwin had been a key in the South Pacific air ferry route, designed to avoid routes through the Japanese Mandate in the Central Pacific for bomber reinforcement of the Philippines. By November 1941, the Allies envisioned Darwin as the hub of transshipment efforts to support the Java and Philippine forces.
Yeah, Dutch flag over here, Java. That's why my dad fought against the Japanese. So, yeah.
And due to its importance, the Australian government considered it as a vital asset in Australia's defence against an expanding imperial of Japan. Australia lay directly south of the newly consolidated Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere, where Japanese military leaders feared that it would be used as a base by the Allies to strike at Japan's newly won empire. Commander of the Combined Fleet, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, feared Darwin was a possible hindrance to Japanese operations.
Those names are always Oh, wow. Admiral Izokuruku Yamato.
Operations in Java and Timor. He submitted proposals for an amphibious invasion of the Darwin area, but the Navy and Army General Staff rejected that option, indicating that the continent required more troops to subdue and garrison than Japan had to expect.
Is this a typo? Australia? Because I see here Australia, New Guinea, Dutch New Guinea. So I guess this is a typo. Australia. It could be, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is a typo.
So Australia's northern ports had to be neutralized instead, and the islands above it had to be seized as a buffer to prevent Allied counterstrokes against Japan's newly vital islands and resource centers. Destroying Darwin was the first step in that process, and offered the additional advantage of diverting Allied resources to Australia's defense, and away from the fighting in Southeast Asia.
Yeah. Dutch Timor, Dutch New Guinea, Java. We were there. Allied.
Following the outbreak of the Pacific War in early December 1941, Darwin's defenses were strengthened. In line with plans developed before the war, several Australian Army and Royal Australian Air Force units stationed in the town were sent to the Netherlands East Indies to strengthen the defences of the islands of Ambon and Timor. The harbour underwent improvements to coastal defences and port facilities, while local airfield facilities were also upgraded, and the garrison was steadily increased. Following the outbreak of the war, all but 2,000 civilians were evacuated from the town to the southern Australia state. Despite Darwin's strategic importance to the defence of Australia, the city was poorly defended. The Australian Army's 14th Heavy Anti-Aircraft Battery comprised 16 QF 3.7-inch AA guns, and 2 3-inch AA guns, to counter aircraft flying at high altitudes, and 8 Lewis guns for use against low-flying raiders. The crews of these guns had conducted little recent training, due to ammunition shortages. Also stationed at Darwin was the headquarters of Brigadier David Blake's 7th Military District, with about 2 militia battalions of the citizens' military forces. The air forces stationed in the town was RAAF No. 12 Squadron, which was equipped with 5 unserviceable CAC Wirraway advanced trainers used as fighters, and RAAF No. 13 Squadron with 3 Lockheed Hudson light bombers. Also present on the day of the attack were 10 P-40 Warhawk fighters, from the U.S. 33rd Pursuit Squadron of the U.S. Army Air Force, which had arrived Darwin on the 15th of February. They were due to take off for Timor, on their way to Java. There was an air warning radar unit in the city, but the equipment was incomplete, and the last of radar equipment would not arrive at Darwin until 22 February.
Well, the music at the background is rather loud, and order for battle. Japan. What brought Japan? 4 flight ships?
To support the invasion of Timor, and to interdict the flow of material and supplies to Java from Darwin, a surprise air raid was planned against Port Darwin. An internal draft plan of operation was drawn by Southern Task Force Commander, Vice Admiral Nobutake Kondo. For the attack on Darwin, Kondo had assembled a large strike force, the IJN 1st Air Fleet, under the command of Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo. This force comprised the aircraft carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Hiryu, and Soryu, escorted by 2 heavy cruisers of 8th Cruiser Division, and 1st Destroyer Squadron, comprised of a light cruiser and 7 destroyers.
That was not nothing. 4 aircraft carriers.
Each carrier had an established strength of 63 to 72 aircraft, comprising 27 Nakajima B-5N2 Kate torpedo bombers, 18 Aichi D-3A1 Valdive bombers, and 18 Mitsubishi A-6M20 fighters. A total of 432 aircraft with reserves.
Wow. That's an army coming up.
led by Air Group Commander Mitsuo Fushida. The carrier-borne aircraft were manned by experienced pilots and crews, around 80% of whom had participated in the Pearl Harbor attacks.
And survived.
3 submarines of the 6th Submarine Squadron also grouped with the force. These task force would leave Palau and proceed to Timor Sea, 350 kilometers northwest of Darwin. Their objective was to conduct a surprise attack and to destroy the port facilities, sink as many ships in the harbor as possible, and destroy infrastructures like oil storage and the army base. In addition to the carrier-borne aircraft, 54 land-based naval bombers also would carry out the raid on Darwin on the same day. These units comprised of 27 Mitsubishi G4M Betty medium bombers from the Kano-Air Air Group based at Kendari, and 27 Mitsubishi G3M Nell medium bombers from the 1st Air Group operating at Ambon.
Wow, there's a massive attack being prepared. Whew.
Both air groups were comprised of the IJN 21st Air Flotilla, under the command of the 11th Air Fleet Commander, Vice Admiral Nishizo Sukahara. Their objective was to conduct the noon raid and to destroy the RAAF base. On the 9th of February 1942, the suggestion of a strike on Darwin, by Rear Admiral Damon Yamaguchi, was followed up by the Southern Area Fleet Commander, Vice Admiral Nobutake Kondo. Kondo then relayed it to the Commander of Combined Fleet, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto. At 10:20 on the 10th of February, a Mitsubishi C-5M2 Babs reconnaissance aircraft, from the 3rd Air Group took off from Ambon, to carry out a covert photo reconnaissance over Port Darwin. After stealthily reconnoitering over, and taking photos of Port Darwin, the C-5M2 Babs landed on Ambon at 17:20. The crew reported that they identified an aircraft carrier, 5 destroyers, and 21 merchant ships in Darwin Harbour, as well as 30 aircraft at the town's 2 airfields. Though at the time, there is no aircraft carrier at Darwin. The crew had sighted a former aircraft carrier, converted to seaplane tender, USS Langley, who left on the 11th of February.
Okay, so there was no aircraft carrier.
On the 15th of February, 1 U.S. Army transport ship, and 3 civilian transport ship, carrying troops for Timor reinforcement, consisted of U.S. Army of the 147th and 148th Field Artillery. And Australian troops of the 24th Pioneer Battalion departed Darwin at 2 o'clock. The convoy was escorted by a heavy cruiser, USS Houston, 1 destroyer, USS Peary, and 2 Royal Australian Navy sloops. On the same day, at 1400 hours, the IJN 1st Carrier Air Fleet Task Force left Palau for Timor Sea, for the attacks on Port Darwin. One of the carriers, the IJN Kaga, was limited to 18 knots because she had struck an uncharted reef, while shifting mooring positions.
One damaged.
On the afternoon of the 18th of February, the Allied convoy, that was bound for Timor had returned to Darwin. The convoy had to reverse course on the 16th of February, after the Supreme Commander of ABDA Command, General Wavell, had received intelligence information that indicated the invasion of Timor was imminent. He also feared that a Japanese carrier was in the area to cover the landing. The constant air attack on the Timor convoy was one major piece of that evidence. The Houston and the Perry then were ordered to leave Darwin and joined the Rear Admiral Dorman strike force at Chilachap. After a Japanese invasion convoy for Bali had been sighted on Makassar Strait.
So the photo reconnaissance did not show the entire Darwin because port, the port okay, but not everything there because the Americans came back after the reconnaissance.
The
Okay.
Houston and the Peary departed on that day. Shortly after departure, the Peary sonar detected a suspected submarine, and launched a search that lasts several hours, while Houston continued alone. However, they found nothing, and returned to Darwin for a refuel. This took longer than expected, and USS Berry Commander, Lieutenant Commander Keith, decided to remain at Darwin overnight, and sail for Chillicothe on the next morning. By dawn of the 19th of February, after cautiously sailed to the south, Vice Admiral Nagumo Carrier's task force had arrived at a pre-arranged launch point, 350 kilometers northwest of Darwin. A weather reconnaissance aircraft had been launched from the cruiser, Tone, at dawn and arrived over Darwin at around 8:30. With the weather fine and clear, the attack on Darwin was confirmed and Nagumo ordered the strike. At 8:30, the carriers launched the first wave, consists of 81 B-5N2 Kate torpedo bombers, but functioning as level bombers. Escorted by 18 A-6N20 fighters. At 9 o'clock, the second wave is launched with 71 D-3A1 Valdi bombers.
Massive. Wow.
Escorted by 18 A-6N2.
And considering what was in Darwin, should be an easy victory.
0 fighters. The second wave would catch up with the first wave before arriving over Darwin. A total of 188 aircraft was launched. The attack
188 against 30 in Darwin and some training planes, and
was led by Commander Mitsuo Fujita aboard a Nakajima B-5N2 Kate. The order also was given to land-based bombers and flying boats of IJN 21st Air Flotilla. The land-based bombers would attack the Darwin airfield at 11:30, while flying boats will seek the enemy in the Arafura Sea and the Timor Sea. 27 Mitsubishi G4M Betty medium bombers of Kanoya Air Group, led by Lieutenant Commander Toshii Irisa, departed Kendari at 09:05. While 27 Mitsubishi G3M Nell medium
20. How many?
bombers of 1st Air Group, led by Lieutenant Commander Takio Ozaki, departed Ambon 5 minutes later. They were to joining over Banda Sea before headed for Darwin. As morning on the 19th of February came around, it seemed like another normal day in Darwin. The freighter, MV Neptuna, carrying material for the extension of the harbour boom, and 200 tons of depth charges, was at the wharf's outer berth. The Australian freighter, SS Barossa, with wood to extend the wharf, was also present. There were 3 American transport ships, USAT Meeks, Mauna Loa, and SS Port Ma.
The voiceover is AI. He definitely has trouble with the names.
Of the return Timor convoy. There was the British ship, MV Tulagi, also from the return Timor convoy. The British tanker, MV British Motorist, was there to replenish Darwin's stocks of fuel. The hospital ship, HMAHS Manunda, originally bound for Singapore, was in the anchorage, as was the Australian freighter, SS Zealandia, carrying ammunition.
Hardly any defense. These are all ships with little to none on air defense.
Destroyer, USS Peary, was trying to get topped off with fuel to head to Java. A destroyer seaplane tender, the USS William B. Preston, was servicing its Catalinas. There were some 47 vessels in all. 6 remaining Hudsons from RAAF-2 Squadron, who had evacuated Dutch Timor, also arrived early in the morning. Also, 5 PBY Catalinas of Patrol Wing 10 had gone out on a routine patrol over the Timor Sea. One of those patrols the area around Bathurst Island. In addition to the vessels in port, the U.S. supply ships, USAT Don Isidro, and SS Florence D, were near Bathurst Island. They were bound for Philippines, bringing ammunition to General Douglas MacArthur's besieged forces there. For Don Isidro, after being discovered by the Japanese float plane a day before, her captain decided to reverse course, and head back for Darwin. At 9:15, 10 P-40 Warhawks of the U.S. Army Air Force 33rd Pursuit Squadron, under command of Major Floyd Pell, took off and heading west for Timor on the first leg of their journey to Java. However,
Oh, they left for Java. Oh. Oh boy.
they were recalled back 20 minutes later because of bad weather. By 9:15, as the first air attack fleet en route to Darwin, the formation encountered a Patrol Wing 10 PBY Catalina, flown by Lieutenant Thomas Mora, who was on patrol out of Darwin. 9 Kagas Zeros was broke from formation to intercept an American patrol. One of the Zeros, flown by Naval Air Pilot, First Class Yoshikazu Nagahama, bounced the Catalina, before Mora's Kuruni-Watt hit them. With both engines dead, Mora PBY Catalina forced to make a hard landing on the sea. 8
Without even a shot fired.
Kaga Zeros then returned to the main formation, while 1 Zero loses from formation and proceeds to Darwin alone. Observing the action was a small Filipino merchant ship, the SS Florence D, altered course and rescued the crew a short time later. At 9:37, Father McGrath of the Sacred Heart Mission, on Bathurst Island, who was also an Australian coast watcher, observed a large force of aircraft heading south, and sent a message using a bedel radio to the coastal radio station at Darwin. However, no general alarm was given at Darwin. The RAAF officers judged that the aircraft, which had been sighted, was 10 P-40 Warhawks, who had recalled back after bad weather. A grave error was made, considered that
Oh yes.
P-40 is not coming from the north rather than from the west. As the attack fleet flew across the Tiwi Islands, 6-0 from Hieu, split from the main formation, and strafed the Bathurst Island mission and a stranded C-53 on the airstrip. The aircraft was destroyed, and several buildings, including the radio shack, were damaged. At 9:40, 10 P-40 Warhawks was back at Darwin. 5 Warhawks landed to refuel, while the remainder patrolled over Darwin's sky. At the same time, the main Japanese force crosses the coast east of Darwin, and then
Oh, they come on the backside. Oh boy.
turns
Yeah.
over the 35 kilometers peg, on its approach to the town from the southeast, in an effort for some deception. Despite the main force having been reported, but not yet over Darwin, the first Japanese aircraft to arrive was a lonely Zero, flown by Nagahama, who had broken off early from the main formation. Between 9:37 and 9:45, he quickly engaged 5 P-40 Warhawks of the 33rd Pursuit Squadron, who still in the air, as they attempted to protect the other 5 who were already landing. Nagahama Zero was too quick. 4 Warhawks were quickly shot down, while one managed to break off over the flights, and heads to the southeast.
Wow. 1 against 5. By surprise. And again, he wins.
At 9:55, the main formation approached the target from the southeast, and discovered that still no alarm had been sounded in Darwin. Like the attack on Pearl Harbor, the IJN task force once again had achieved a complete surprise on Darwin. The attack commenced when 9 low-flying Zero fighters from Kaga, who had split from the main formation, strafed an auxiliary minesweeper, HMAS Gunbar, as a prelude to commencing the major attack. At 9:58, the air raid sirens of Darwin were sounded. 16 3.7-inch heavy anti-aircraft guns opened fire. The 5 War Hawks, which had landed, were shocked to discover that they were under attack by Japanese Zeros. They tried to take off again. 2 were able to get to the sky, including squadron leader, Major Pell, but immediately shot down by Japanese Zeros from Hiryu, and was killed when he parachuted out of the aircraft. The other War Hawks on the ground were destroyed, as they tried to take off. Darwin's air defense now had been eliminated. What left his 16 3.7-inch heavy air guns on the ground to do the job.
Oh, total slaughter.
Meanwhile, Mitsuo Fushida bombers began their run over the harbor and town. At 9:59, all B-5N2 Kate-level bombers began attacking ship at the harbor, while the fighter group strafed AA position and other targets of opportunity. 800 kilograms bombs struck the wharf, blowing the pier's train into the harbor. Explosions destroyed water mains, oil pipes, and much of the pier. Strings of bombs moved across the hospital, post office, police barracks, and through the town's government offices. They were smashed and left in smoldering ruins. The Japanese had learned a lesson from the past. They were not making the same mistake again, as they made at Pearl Harbor, by attacking only the ships. As the Kate high-level bombers complete their bombing run, at 10:03, the Valdive bombers began their attack. 71 D3A1 Valdive bombers were divided into 2 groups. All Valdive bombers from Akagi, Hiryu, Soryu, and part of Kaga dive bombers, to attack the port and military installation, while the other part of Kaga dive bombers attacks the Parap civil airfield and the RAAF station. At 10:10, the situation deteriorated rapidly. At the dock, shipping riding a tanker was then being subjected to devastating pattern bombing, dive bombing, and machine gun sweeps. Both the Rossa and Neptuna, at the dock, took early bomb hits and were set afire. The 3P...
Wow. What a massacre.
PY of Patrol Wing 10 on the water, were destroyed by gunfire from Kaga Zeros. Swan, Warrego, Peary, and William B. Preston managed to get underway. However, it was the destroyer Peary that was the largest warship in the harbor, and she took more than her share of Japanese air attack. After evading the first few bombs, Peary took 5 bomb hits in rapid succession. The ship broke apart. She sank later at 1300 hours, along with her commanding officer. The Manunda, a hospital ship, then sent out rescue boats to rescue Berry's surviving crew. Shortly afterward, she was hit by a Valdive bomber.
Hospital ship or not, it's going down. Yeah.
Despite 12 killed and 47 wounded among the crew and medical staff, Manunda continued to function as a hospital ship. U.S. Army transport, USAT Meads, was ablaze and sinking. Mauna Loa had a broken back, and was going down by the stern, although her entire crew was rescued. A British tanker, MV British Motorist, was sinking by the bow. Port Mar was beached. At about the same time, Zealandia took a bomb down her hatch that exploded deep in the hold. The port and harbour were racked by an almost volcanic explosion, as the 200 tons of depth charges on the
Yeah. And then the oil.
blazing Neptuna detonated and sent shockwaves through the harbour. the nearby Barossa, being towed clear when Neptune exploded, had to be beached, and her timber cargo completely lost. At the same time, Swan was badly damaged by a near miss. At 10:30, about 30 minutes after it had started, the Strike Force Commander, Commander Mitsuo Fushida, signals the last of his aircraft to return to the carrier task force. At 10:45,
and 1.5 hours, so give or take.
As they headed back, however, they spotted two Philippine cargo schooners, the USAT Don Isidro, and the SS Florence D, and reported it to 1st Carrier Fleet Commander, Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo. Before they headed back, 9 Zeros from the carrier Soryu attacked the freighter Don Isidro to slow its speed.
Enemy by opportunity, yeah. Second wave. First wave was already damaging enough. Now we have a second wave.
Darwin's agony was not over yet. The second wave, making up of 54 land-based medium bombers from Kanoya Air Group and 1st Air Group, arrived over Darwin just before midday.
And there was nothing left. There was no air defense, no ships, it's no airplanes.
At 11:58, the town air raid siren was sounded. As the bomber force approached Darwin at 18,000 feet, they ignore the town and harbour. Instead, they concentrate on the military airfield. What little the first wave had left untouched, the bombers finished off. One of these formations attacked RAAF base Darwin from the southwest, while the other approached from the northeast. The two formations arrived over the base at the same time, and dropped their bombs simultaneously. This massive load of explosives from 54 aircraft struck the entire area of the airfield simultaneously, and with terrifying force. The highly disciplined waves of bombers then wheeled and turned, rearranged themselves in tidy formations, and swept back over the RAAF base. For another simultaneous release of up to 13,000 kilograms of high explosive. At 18,000 feet, the bombers were well beyond the range of the machine guns. The Australian heavy anti-aircraft flak gunners were unable to shoot down or damage any of the high-flying Japanese aircraft due to defective fuses.
Yeah. When it's bad, it's really bad.
The second wave raid inflicted extensive damage on the RAAF base. The highly accurate pattern bombing destroyed 2 hangars, runways, 4 dormitories, the hospital, mess halls, equipment stores, and several other buildings. 6 Hudson light bombers were also destroyed, and another Hudson and a Wirrawee were badly damaged. The second raid lasts only 20 minutes, and at about 12:20, all 54 Japanese medium bombers left Darwin.
Wait, no losses. Third wave. Whoa. You really went at it. Wow.
After receiving reported that 2 cargo ships were spotted, Vice Admiral Nagumo immediately ordered the cruisers, Tone and Shikuma, to probe the spotted vessel, while ordering Soryu and Hiryu to attack it after they received the first wave aircraft. Tone launched an IEG E-13A1 Jake reconnaissance float plane to scout the reported ships. A Jake reconnaissance float plane later located Don Isidro at about 1500 hours. 2 bombs were dropped, but neither hits the ship. At much the same time, 9 D-3A1 Val dive bombers on each of the carriers, Soyuz and Hiyu, were launched. The planes from Soyuz found the ship 1.5 hours later. The 9 dive bombers scored 5 direct hits.
Yeah, dive bombers.
Leaving the ship heavily damaged and afire. She was beached on the north coast later, to avoid sinking. Just 50 kilometers to the south, Florence D picked up a distress call from Don Isidro, and immediately changed course to assist. However, they were spotted by an E-13.
Yeah, assist. How? Wait, what?
A1
Picking up survivors, not knowing that it will be destroyed
Jake
too.
reconnaissance float plane. Unarmed and with a top speed of only 10 knots, the captain decided that it was useless to outmaneuver the float plane. The reconnaissance float plane dropped 2 bombs, but neither hit the ship, before flying off to the west.
Okay, this pilot wasn't that good.
Under the threat from Japanese bombers, Florence D. captain decided that it was too dangerous to proceed to the Philippines, and turned back for Darwin. Unfortunately, approximately 2 hours later, Hiyu 9D3A1 Val dive bombers found the freighter, and launched an immediate attack. 2 bombs were hit, on a cargo ship full of ammunitions, ensuring the end of Florence D.
Yep.
Florence D went down by the bow within minutes.
Yeah, victory. Whoa.
At the end of this horrific day in Darwin, 9 ships had been sunk, 9 P-40s from USAAF 33rd Pursuit Squadron destroyed in the air.
9 ships. 11 aircrafts. The only one that were there.
While 2 more P-40s, all 6 RAAF No. 2 Squadron Hudsons, and 1 LB-30 destroyed on the ground. 3 US Navy Patrol Wing 10 also burned in the harbor. Another 278 RAAF personnel
278.
were considered to have deserted as a result of the raids, although it has been argued that the desertions were mostly the result of ambiguous orders given to RAAF ground staff after the attacks. Some 250 people had been killed, mostly on the Peary and Neptuna.
Non-combatants. 250.
The government in Canberra suppressed these casualty figures, out of fear for panic among the Australian population.
Oh.
Darwin was destroyed as a serviceable base. Coming on the heels of the Singapore disaster, the raid was interpreted as a prelude to an invasion on the continent. Australia's now living in the darkest hour. Any request by the Allies to send Australian corps to outer territories had been blocked. After the 19th of February raid, the Japanese made 64 more bombing attacks on the Northern Territory, and parts of Western Australia's north coast, between the 4th of March 1942 and the 12th of November 1943. But none of the attacks are devastating as the Darwin raid. For the Japanese, the first air fleet strike on Darwin succeeded in eliminating all of these threats to the Timor invasion. The Timor convoys were undetected until they reached their destinations, and unloading was unimpeded. They had achieved complete surprise on Darwin, as they did on Pearl Harbor. Despite the heavy fire from Australian AA guns, the Japanese lost only 1-0 and 2 Vals over Darwin. 1 Kate was also forced to ditch in the ocean on the return flight, but its
minimal damage. Total victory.
crew was rescued. Another 34 planes were damaged in varying degrees. So in this respect, the Darwin raid was a successful operation. However, Nagumo's described the operation as using a sledgehammer to break an egg, while Fuchida would later say that the job to be done seemed hardly worthy of the Nagumo force.
Ooh. Yeah, was it overkill? Yeah, I guess so. After the first bombing raid, there was hardly anything left. And the second bombing raid was, yeah, in my opinion, overkill.
After the attack, the Nagumo carrier fleet headed to Kendari for refueled and resupply. They were joined by Vice Admiral Nobutake Kondo, with the 4th Cruiser Squadron, and 2 3rd Battleship Squadron. They are getting ready for the Indian Ocean, for the endgame of Java. Thank you for what.
Yep. And there's why my dad fought against the Japs for 2 years, I believe, 19 months. And he returned home. Otherwise, I would never have been sitting here and telling the story. Yeah. Wow. Heavy losses for Australia. Ooh. Heavy. Good video. Thank you for the suggestion. Good video. Good explanations. All the details are there. So, And if you like this video, then press like. And if you want to see more of my videos, then this is a good place to start with. And otherwise, it would be really appreciated if you hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching and see you in the next Australian video.